The year is 1590. It's been 3 long years since Governor John White left the Roanoke colony behind. He left with a promise of a quick return, but storms, war, and delays held him back. Now he finally steps ashore, expecting to reunite with the settlers he left behind, including his own daughter and granddaughter, who was but a newborn when he left. But instead of finding a busy and growing colony, he's met with an eerie and unsettling silence. The settlement is deserted, the houses abandoned to the elements, with signs of hasty departure scattered across the ground. Belongings he had once buried for safekeeping have been dug up and destroyed, their remains scattered among the ruins. And on a lone tree, the letters CRO stand as the colony's last cryptic message. What happened to the Roanoke colonists? Did they find a new beginning, or meet a tragic end? Welcome to the Curionaut, as we present the Lost Colony of Roanoke. This 6-part series will uncover the story of England's first attempt to establish a colony in the New World. We'll explore the historical context of England's ambitions, the missteps in the settlers' dealings with native tribes, the internal struggles of both the natives and settlers, and ultimately the disappearance of the colony, a mystery that has puzzled historians for centuries. Together, we'll explore the people and events that have formed one of history's most fascinating mysteries. Join me, fellow Curionaut, as we explore. In 1584, England was eager to expand its influence. Across the Atlantic lay the New World, a land of immeasurable resources and new opportunities. Yet England was not alone in this ambition. Spain, the superpower of the era, had already claimed vast territories in the Americas, from the Caribbean to South America. Each year, King Philip II's treasure-laden ships returned to Spain, fueling the empire's wealth and influence. To challenge Spain, Queen Elizabeth I granted Sir Walter Raleigh a charter to establish an English colony in the New World. She envisioned a foothold that would expand England's territory and facilitate its influence across the globe. However, Raleigh knew that establishing a colony would be a massive undertaking, requiring careful planning, resources, and highly motivated people willing to face the unknown. For many commoners, the opportunity for upward mobility in a society dominated by noblemen was rare. It is no surprise, then, that part of establishing a colony came with permission to be a state-sponsored pirate, privateering. The idea of capturing treasure-filled Spanish ships fascinated the English. Rumors spread among commoners and nobles alike about the vast amounts of gold the Spanish extracted from the New World. Such stories inspired even greater legends, like the fabled City of Gold, El Dorado. Though mythical, these tales fueled dreams of adventure and fortune, further motivating Raleigh's vision for the New World. Between 1500 and 1600, Spain organized a vast number of treasure ships that traveled from the Americas to Europe as part of the Spanish treasure fleet system, also known as the Flota de Indias. These fleets transported gold, silver, and other valuable commodities extracted from Spanish colonies in the Americas to Europe. On average, 1 or 2 fleets per year were sent, often comprising 20 to 50 ships per fleet. In Raleigh's time, seizing even one Spanish galleon, like the legendary San Jose discovered centuries later off the Colombian coast with treasures worth billions in today's currency, would be life-changing. The idea of seizing Spanish wealth captivated the English public and became an effective motivational tool for Raleigh's vision of Roanoke. With the enthusiasm building, Raleigh mobilized his men. To prepare, Raleigh dispatched a reconnaissance mission to scout a potential location for the first settlement. In 1584, he selected a capable team to lead the expedition. Arthur Barlow, a seasoned explorer known for his vivid writing and keen observations, would document the journey. Philip Amadas, a skilled navigator, would guide the ship safely across the Atlantic. Simon Ferdinando, a Portuguese pilot and expert mariner, would ensure the fleet's passage, a man whose later decisions would complicate the fate of the Lost Colony, as we'll explore in a future episode. After a grueling 2-month voyage, the English ships arrived on the coast of what is now North Carolina in July 1584. For these men, after weeks spent in the cramped, damp quarters of their ships, the sight of Roanoke Island was utterly breathtaking. Towering forests framed the shores, rivers teemed with life, and the air carried the mingling scents of saltwater and pine. Barlow later wrote of the land, "The soil is the most plentiful, sweet, fruitful, and wholesome of all the world." Barlow also wrote, "The earth bringeth forth all things in abundance, as in the first creation, without toil or labour." His reference to the first creation would have conjured images of the Garden of Eden for the English, a land overflowing with blessings, seemingly ordained by divine authority. To these weary sailors it must have seemed like paradise, untouched, unspoiled, and ripe with promise. This pristine beauty was no accident. It stood as a silent testament to how well the native people managed the land. Despite a population that likely reached into the thousands on Roanoke Island alone, the native communities lived in balance with their environment, ensuring the land remained bountiful, productive, and thriving. The English believed they had discovered this land, claiming it as their own and naming it Virginia in honor of their queen. Yet the land already had a name, though history has not preserved it. Some accounts suggest it might have been called Wingandacoa, but this cannot be proven. What is clear is that the land was not nameless. It was known, loved, and ruled by the people who had lived there for centuries. Regardless of how ill-prepared both the visitors and the natives were to experience this collision of worlds, the moment had arrived. The English had come, and history would be forever changed. The English's first encounter with the native people of Roanoke was one of curiosity and generosity. A group of Secatan men paddled out to the ships in canoes, their movements swift and confident. One man, appearing to be a leader, came aboard. He showed no fear, communicating eagerly with the crew. The English, in turn, offered him a meal of meat and wine, which he accepted with enthusiasm. After finishing his meal, the man swam back to his canoe and began fishing. In less than half an hour, his canoe was overflowing with fish, which he divided between the English ship and their smaller boat. This act of gratitude no doubt left a strong impression on the English, setting a positive tone for their first encounter. The following day, the English met Granganameo, a Secatan leader. He arrived with about 40 men in a convoy of canoes. Once ashore, his attendants spread a mat for him to sit on, a gesture of respect and authority. When the English arrived, they were armed, perhaps adopting a more defensive posture after seeing the arrival of 40 Secatan men. But Granganameo and his men remained seated, calm and composed, showing they had no reason to mistrust the English and apparently no prior exposure to gunfire. With a simple gesture, he invited the English to sit, touching his head, chest, and theirs, a symbol of peace and unity. Encouraged by these warm interactions, the English began trading with the Secatan. The native people offered pelts, woven goods, corn, and fish, while the English presented knives, hatchets, and trinkets. These exchanges symbolized the beginning of a tentative partnership, though the English saw them as the first steps toward dominance rather than mutual respect. Barlow, in his first voyage report, described the native people as mannerly, peaceful, and generous, living as though in a golden age of innocence and virtue. This portrayal not only highlighted the natives' generosity and hospitality, but also framed them as ideal candidates for religious conversion, an essential factor in establishing permanent colonies, as securing the endorsement of religious leaders was vital for legitimizing such endeavors. The vivid descriptions and evocative imagery in Barlow's account undoubtedly helped Raleigh garner the crucial support he needed back in England, as he prepared to advance his plans for the New World. However, despite these optimistic views of the native people, the English were woefully short-sighted. They viewed the Sekatan and other tribes as simple people leading simple lives, failing to recognize the complexities of their social and political systems. This misconception would soon be challenged when the English learned of Chief Wingina, the most powerful leader in the region and Granganimeo's brother. Wingina did not greet the English initially because he was recovering from a severe leg injury sustained in a conflict with the rival tribe. When he eventually appeared, the English were struck by his commanding presence and the respect he commanded among his people. During one visit to Granganimeo's village, the English were invited into the home of his wife. While the English were being hosted, 2 Sekatan hunters entered carrying bows. The sudden appearance startled the English, conditioned as they were to act defensively. They instinctively reached for their weapons, not from malice, but from the mindset of soldiers prepared for danger. Granganimeo's wife, recognizing the tension, acted swiftly to defuse it. She ordered the hunters to leave and even commanded her people to break their bows, a profound gesture of peace, as these bows were essential for survival and likely held both sentimental and cultural significance. She then reassured the English, offering them comfort and hospitality to ensure they felt welcome. As the English spent more time with the people of Roanoke, they began to realize the complexities of native society. Their societies were structured, their leaders commanded respect, and their customs reflected a deep connection to their land. The English arrived with the assumption that they were bringing civility to the native people, a people they viewed as living simple lives in need of guidance. Yet, as the days passed, the people of the land began to show that they had their own thriving way of life. They had cultivated the land, managed its resources, and governed themselves for centuries without European intervention. As the English explored further, they encountered something unexpected. Tools used by the Sekatan for crafting wooden canoes were made of fashioned metal, a material uncommon in the region. Upon inquiry, the English learned that these tools had been salvaged from a shipwreck. Venturing deeper into Sekatan territory, they beheld another shipwreck with their own eyes, its origins unclear. Could it have belonged to Spanish or Portuguese rivals? If Spanish survivors had remained in the area, or if they had returned, it would drastically change the situation. The English had come with only a small expeditionary force, not enough to contend with a Spanish presence. The mystery deepened. Who were these earlier visitors? Were they still nearby? And what might that mean for England's fragile ambitions in the New World? Part 2 of this 6-part series will explore the mystery of these shipwrecks and the implications they held for both the native peoples and the English. We'll also follow the transformative journey of 2 native men brought to England, witnessing firsthand the marvels and mysteries of the Old World. Finally, we'll uncover the ambitious plans driving England's next expedition to Roanoke and the determination to make their claim permanent. Be sure to join us for Part 2 of the Lost Colony of Roanoke. Like and subscribe if you dare, and as always, thank you for watching. Stay curious and keep exploring.